Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. A little chilly, but doing well.
You don't live in Alaska.
I know, but yeah, you're sending all the cold air down here. You're like, pulling a killer frost on us.
I come from the south, and I'm going to say it's chilly to an Alaskan. No, we do not do that. We don't play those games.
No, exactly. Well, I freely admit that I definitely have thinner skin than you. So, yeah, we're just prepping for like Snowmageddon here in North Carolina. So, like, there's a run on bread and milk. That's what we Southerners do.
Right, sure. All right. I'm so glad I have backup tonight because Will is punchy.
Yeah, it's been one of those weeks. Yep.
In case you listeners are wondering, you do hear the chuckle of Miss Veronica Rose. How are you doing tonight, Veronica?
I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
We're doing good. You threw in a y'all.
Yeah.
Are you siding with the South and not the North in this matter?
Well, I am Texan, so.
Wow. This is a Civil War. My God.
I mean, granted, I am, West Texas, which technically that part of the state probably belongs more to, the Southwest region than it does the actual South. So. Yeah. But you can't help it when you live here. You just kind of throw out that y'all every now and again.
Speaking of sides and allegiances, I thought it was interesting how right before we started recording, you mentioned something, Veronica, that I didn't know about you. Because I live in a glass castle where anybody who watches Arrow automatically watches The Flash. It's just my second nature. So you mentioned you've never seen one episode of The Flash?
No, I mean, I've seen episodes. I just haven't seen anything this season, and I never finished last season. Like, I saw, I think, 4 episodes of last season, and then I just kind of stopped.
Yeah, you made the right decision.
Wow.
Everyone knows that for me, season 4 was like the lowest one for me. Whereas, I know for you, Sarah, whenever we were, talking season 3, I had to pull you across the finish line. I think you were helping me pull across the line last season.
Yeah. There. I think it's a show that there lacks consistency of, and it always bothers me. But I mean, I was thinking about this because we have Veronica, and I may say something that's sacrilegious right now, but I would actually argue season 1 of The Flash probably is better than any season of Arrow as a whole.
I barely remember season 1.
Of The Flash or of Arrow?
The Flash. Yeah, The Flash just didn't pull me in quite like Arrow has, or even now as far as Black Lightning has. And I also have like Legends of Tomorrow as, those are the 3 that I'm actually committed to. Supergirl and The Flash, for some reason, they just didn't hold my interest. And even though I watched the first and second season, I think I watched most of the 3rd season of The Flash, but it didn't stick with me. I didn't rewatch anything and stick with it. Mm-hmm. And I barely made it through first season of Supergirl.
So if you're a fan of Black Lightning, are you reading my fan fiction about Gamby? And
no, I didn't even know that there was one.
Oh, she's been shipping hard. She's been, yeah.
Oh,
I'm surprised. There's just this, she's just waiting for a few more clips that she can like put together a fan vid for it.
Anytime we talk Black Lightning, there's at least 2 points where I'm like, yeah. You notice what they didn't say, Will? There's some history.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
It's like the best bit ever. I love that bit so much. And Supergirl, I understand because that show, even season 3, lost me. But I'm watching season 4, and this is their best season.
Yeah, it totally is. Veronica, you should go over the hiatus. You should definitely go watch it because just looking at your timeline, there are a lot of parallels to what's going on in present day that I think you would really get into.
Yeah, and Sam Witwer. Sam Witwer. Now, I may be biased because I have a giant crush on him, but he is freaking amazing on the show, and he plays one of the best villains. Like, I'm gonna be shocked if at the end of this season, if he doesn't come out and like articles down the road that talk about the Arrowverse don't mention Agent Liberty being among the top 3, if not the best villain in the Arrowverse.
Ooh. Wow.
Like, he's really good.
He is good. I agree with you there. I agree with you in the top 3. But as a top, I don't know.
Well, here. So I know, Veronica, you don't watch the show.
Right.
But I do want to do a small recap of Supergirl episode 8, Bunker Hill, because there's something that they did that I didn't expect them to do, and it all goes back to Agent Liberty. And I want to talk about talk with Will about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's that moment when he's lost the battle, and then he throws out that idea that, well, now everybody knows who I am, Denise. I'm Ben Lockwood. You know my identity, but you don't know hers. And why is that okay? And why is that right? And so, yes, very cliche. And we've seen it now on Flash. We've seen it on Arrow time and time again, this whole identity crisis and being unmasked versus hiding out in the shadows as a hero. Mm-hmm. But what they also did was they added that moment at the end with the president. And the president is telling Kara, like, I risk my family's safety every day. Why do you have the right not to just opt out of that? And I've never thought about it in that sense before.
That was a very, you must have read my mind, because that was the highlight moment for me of that episode as well. And how strong a moment that was, that you're right. I haven't seen that quite done that way when presenting the issue of, unmasking these villains. And because you always hear this, I do it for the safety of my family, blah blah blah. But when the president put it in those terms, and then turn it back on her, like you said, to why do you get to opt out when I deal with this every single day?
Right.
It was a very strong moment, and it really, for the mid-season finale, really captured the ethical dilemmas that this season has really presented. And also, how we talked earlier, how Kara has not gotten it. It again shows how she's just not getting it, and why Agent Liberty has been able to, utilize his xenophobia and everything to his advantage. Even in that moment after he was unmasked and getting taken to the prison, he masterfully used that opportunity to again expose, at least from their perspective, why he's taken this initiative, and why he has even gotten James to question it, and almost got James to come to his side, even though they didn't. I was a little disappointed that they didn't let James jump all the way, and he managed to catch himself, but it would have been interesting to see how that storyline would have gone, which I know we see that in Arrow, which we'll talk about here shortly. But it was a masterful moment, and I think that was probably one of the best episodes of Supergirl I've seen.
Yeah, and like, this goes back to my point about Agent Liberty, is that I didn't even find him to be. He was a predominant focus of that episode, but it was we've seen an entire episode now just focused on Ben Lockwood and his whole evolution into Agent Liberty. But for him just to have that brief moment of failure and defeat and then to manipulate the situation to his advantage, that's why I think he's a fascinating villain.
He is. Yeah.
And he doesn't need superhero powers
Nope.
to be on par with Kara, because he is that opposite intellectually, and that's what you're seeing, and that's where you see a lot more of those flaws in Kara highlighted, and all of my sometimes frustration with her, because why can't she understand? But I'm very happy with where they left things.
Yeah.
And I'm even more curious as to where they'll pick up on things and more stories that they're going to tell in the later half of the season.
Definitely. And also this, I think Agent Liberty is going to be a season-long presence. Because I think the Russian Supergirl, the Soviet Supergirl, has sort of been teased a few moments, but maybe the writers and the production teams realize that this Agent Liberty storyline is so strong that maybe they're pushing the Soviet Supergirl back a little bit now, because of the things that you just mentioned, that how strong a storytelling it is, and they seem to hit their stride without having a super powered supervillain.
Yeah, and I mean, which again, hats off to the writers now, because for them to have that foresight is very impressive, and to stand by that, because I was shocked when they killed Mercy Graves and her brother at the beginning of the season, considering how much of a deal it was that they were going to be included into this season.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but they lasted 3 episodes because they're like, we don't need you, we have Sam Witwer.
Exactly. we provided Ben the tools, and now we're just going to off these characters, which I think honestly it was good. They served their purpose and they didn't let them linger on.
Yeah, absolutely. So while one superhero decides not to reveal her identity, we head over to Star City, where we have Oliver Queen, who's finally unmasked. And not only is he unmasked, but he's back into the real world, quote unquote. And things have changed. Yes. I don't know how to lead into this episode any clearer than that, but things have changed. Veronica, we brought you on today to mainly talk about Arrow, so you know what? Where are you?
You know what? So far, I am really enjoying this season. Like, I think that having a new crew of writers has dramatically changed the way that I feel about Arrow, because after the last couple of seasons, I was getting to the point where I was like, But so far, I mean, if I separate myself from, like part of like who's the favorite and who's not the favorite, and just look at it as a whole show, I'm really enjoying it. Like I like the back and forth dialogue. I like the intrigue that's going on as to, what's going on with Dig and Lila, and being able to kind of like see different characters each have their own arc going on, and not having this kind of center around Oliver, even though he is what the show is about. It's kind of a nice breakup for me. So I personally am enjoying it. However, I'm not I'm not a huge fan of the idea of having him teaming up with the law enforcement. Like, I think because in a sense I kind of go back to, the idea that I had of Green Arrow from the comic books, who a lot of people argue this point, but he's kind of a socialist, and most of the time socialists aren't really into law enforcement or the government, and fascism and all. But for the show, it totally makes sense. It makes sense that because the whole point of his I guess his legacy was to just get justice for people, and so it makes sense, but I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's not like I hate it. And I don't know.
So you're gray about the subject of him.
Well, I mean, yeah, but not in a like completely negative way. Like, I'm not gonna be, totally going and blasting the writers and how could you and why would you give us that, and I'm not interested in trying to shame the writers or the producers of the show and shame characters. Like, that's not my deal. I just, there's certain types of things I'm going to like and some things I'm not. And I'm just not a fan of the law enforcement. So.
No, that is perfectly fine. Before Will can, though, I want to give a shout out to someone who we have had on the show, our friend Lacey, who wrote an article for Collider, which we all know why we love Collider, Schmodown, about Arrow. And she talked about how the reason why this season is going so well is because they are giving their female characters more agency.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, I love that. Now, I will say though, Monday night's episode, Unmasked, was the first time this season where I saw a bit of the detriment of that, considering this show is about Oliver Queen. Because I don't know if I was a big fan of Oliver Queen during this episode. I understand why he played it this way, but it was so reserved, so unsure, and it just, I don't know if we'll edit this out or leave it in, but I'm going to say it anyway. He was like a little pussy. And I'm not sure if I like that version of Oliver Queen. They like pussified him. I'm sorry. And then I have to say that by doing that, by getting that version of Oliver, I have liked Felicity every single episode of this season until Monday night. It got, and it's not that the writing was bad. For some reason, I felt like Emily Bett was just forcing that kind of really brashness, which I saw the acting, and this is the first time I've ever seen the acting in regards to her performance, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were, kind of split down the middle, because there's some that were totally for it, and then there's a lot of people who didn't like it. They didn't like seeing an aggressive Felicity, because everybody has kind of put her on this pedestal of being the quote unquote the light, and the bright spot in the group of people, and but when I think about like what she had to kind of go through,
yes,
I think that her aggression is understandable. Her fear, her constant fear, because she couldn't protect Oliver while he was in prison, no matter what she was trying to do. And so now that she has him there, she suddenly feels like she's the one that has to be the protector. And he's being, and just from somebody that I care about incredibly, was in prison. When he got out, he went in at age of 17, and he was tried as an adult. When he came out, he was already in his late 20s. When he came out of prison, he was walking on eggshells with every one of us and with society. He didn't know which way was up, which way was down. And he was extremely vulnerable and extremely sensitive. So actually, the way that Oliver was acting was kind of interesting, that I wondered, did he read up on how a person might possibly act when they come out, even though he was only in for like 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah. Yeah. I was just listening to you guys talk and just thinking about the episode. Um, I actually like the way that they portrayed Oliver because remember he did go through all those experiments and the treatment that the doctor did to try to break him, and it 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 to me it seemed like as you were saying, Veronica, uh, by having him, like, just, everybody was so looking for the Olicity shower scene, and they did have one, but it was Oliver like spooked, like thinking back to what happened to him when the last time, when he was in the shower in the prison where he got jumped, and so so I think it was as you said, it's maybe Steven did do some research or whatever, and preparing for playing Oliver in this new light. Having that PTSD or whatever you want to call it after he has been through this, and also because of all the things that he was subjected to when he was going through those treatments where the doctor was trying to break him and everything. I like that because it was a very it humanized him instead of always being this larger than life character. It shows how he has changed, and the black and white world that he used to be in as far as the Green Arrow, now he is starting to see the world in more shades of gray.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. While Felicity's seen it very, very much in black and white.
Yes. Yeah. And it's fair that she's having the reaction that she has. And I was actually really glad that they wrote in for her to confront Oliver about the decision that he made for everybody without consulting with her. I was glad to see that they brought that up because, that's a big issue in a marriage when one person makes a decision for both without even discussing it. So for them to bring that up,
would it be the first time for them?
Yeah, right. And see, and that's the thing that was kind of like making, I think, hard for some fans to feel like their relationship was on equal ground for a long time, because previous seasons they always wrote Felicity as like, I'll just do your bidding kind of thing. And when she started off, she was feisty, she fought him all the time about things. And then all of a sudden they started writing her as like, okay, whatever you say. And it got a little annoying. But now this season, we finally see a Felicity who has had to grow from her experiences. Now, whether some people think it's bad or good, that's the opinion of them. But she's grown, and she is not the same person anymore. She's not young and naive and completely, looking at the world with rose-colored glasses. Now she's actually seeing it for what it really is, especially for, a city like Star City where everybody wants to burn the place down. And having to confront, Diaz and having to literally fight for her life with him. So I like that part of the story. I'm totally down with it. And then like seeing the interactions between Renee and Dinah, and then there's Laurel and Felicity, then and what's the little secret going on between Lila and Dig, and then there's poor Curtis out in space just kind of floating around.
Yeah.
But
he's probably the person who's had the least work development this season. Yeah, definitely. But I touched on Diggle and Diaz earlier. We were talking about Supergirl, and what do y'all think of that as far as possibly being a and especially in the context of what we were just discussing with Felicity and Oliver, where do you see the end game on that?
Considering that Lila has had to use criminals in the past, hence the Suicide Squad, to, get her own gains, I'm not really surprised, to be honest with you. Like, I wasn't at all shocked when they opened that cell door and there he is. I'm still on the fence about how I feel because, Diggle really hasn't said a whole lot. They haven't given him his opportunity to kind of explain where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of been bouncing back and forth like a ping pong ball, and we haven't really gotten a, like, where are you, Dig? Like, what is going on with you? We haven't gotten that yet. So I'm gonna hold my judgment on this particular situation because I want to see where they're going with it. I don't want to get mad about, oh my God, why are they doing this to Oliver and Felicity? Like, because not everything's about Oliver and Felicity.
Right.
He is a part of Argus now, so I want to see where it's gonna go. And I think at this point right now, I just don't feel like, no matter what happens, I don't feel like Diggle will ever do anything to ever truly, truly, truly turn his back on Oliver and Felicity or just stab him in the back. I always feel like there's an end game for him every single time he's done something. So I want to see what happens with this. I'm kind of curious, to be real honest, because, and I'm still really confused about what's going on with this painting. Like, where the hell did this painting come from? And I know where they got it, like all that, but I'm just like, why is this part of the story? But I'm sure we're leading up to that. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's, at the end of the day, I didn't really have too much of a thought about Diggle and Lila working with Diaz, because it's a plot point that's going to be exploited, and it's going to get connected, and we're going to figure out what's in the painting, and there's going to be a double cross, and eventually Felicity is going to kill Diaz, and then Oliver and Felicity are going to get divorced, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Who knows? I mean, what's really like on my mind when I'm watching these episodes is that anytime they include the flash forwards, I'm just constantly wondering, why is Oliver hardly mentioned? Like, the main focus is on figuring out what happened to Felicity. And then finally in this episode, we understand more about Oliver, but still, like, where is he? What is he doing? Is he alive? Is he dead? Is he with Felicity? Are they broken up? Do they have a child?
Don't get me started on the whole Felicity baby thing, because that just irritates me. So
you don't think Black Star is
you know what, it's actually a very good fan theory, and I would not be at all shocked if that's what the truth is, like that's what it comes out to be, that she is their daughter.
And that casting is genius, because she looks like she legitimately could be. But anyway.
Yeah. So I think for me, like, I know a lot of people are really hating the flash forwards, especially when they said that Felicity was dead and everyone just like freaked out and, oh my God, the world was going to end. But, I mean, look what they do for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not like immortal, so eventually they're gonna die. And this is like, we're talking.
And that's assuming that Felicity is actually dead. Maybe she and Oliver.
Yeah,
they may have planned their grand escape out of Star City finally.
Mm-hmm. See, and that's what I keep thinking. I'm honestly I feel like this is just some big ploy to like get everybody back together, and I feel like William is in on it, and like, whoever the hell everybody else is, like, everybody knows what's going on except for like, each other. Yeah. I feel.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think William is in on that. I think he is, the fact that she gave him that stone that led to his whole adventure back to his hometown and to figure things out. I think he's the key. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's in on what this overall plan is with Oliver and Felicity.
I don't know. I mean, it's like I keep telling, my close friends that I'm always talking to about this, like, I don't like assuming so much about what's going to happen. I don't like creating too much of a fan theory just for the simple fact that I want to be surprised.
Yes.
I want the excitement of what's going to happen next. I don't want to sit here and conjure up all these things that this is what's going to happen. And some people are just like gavel down. That's the bottom line. Like, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get all disappointed.
Yeah. They all, you can get a lot of that on, go to Reddit and they'll just have threads of that. Yeah.
Like Will's fan fiction.
Yeah.
He really needs to stop. It's a bad habit. I mean, God. Just because you don't get what you want with Gamby, like, come on.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. We know where that's coming from.
Right.
Okay. No, I hear you, Veronica, but I just want to throw out this one random thing that I noticed that I don't know if it means anything. I doubt it will, but I found it interesting how in present day they learned about this whole scrolling key society. And yet I couldn't help but notice that in the flash forward with Black Star on her forearm, there's a tattoo of a key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does William have a tattoo of a scroll?
Right. Everything that gets pointed out in present day that seems to be a major talking point for the characters, in the end, it's going to give us, it's hinting towards something that's coming. I mean, that's with any show you watch, any show.
Mm-hmm.
They have a major talking point between the characters, and there's just a lot of dialogue about a specific thing. It's going to come up later and have a big part of what's happening. So, yes, I think that her having that key tattoo is definitely giving some kind of clue, but for the life of me, I couldn't even begin to imagine what. I was watching the episode and I just was sitting there and I just remember thinking, like, man, they're just throwing so much out there. I'm getting lost.
Yeah. Lots of threads. During the break, just go back, rewatch it, make notes for 7B, because there were a lot of threads out that they put out there in the midseason.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I refuse to even try to assume what the heck is going on, because I'm just like, you know what? I just tossed the papers in the air, and I was just like, forget it. I give up. I'm just going to wait and watch each episode, and I'm just going to be surprised.
Did you do that before or after you saw the reveal that the new Green Arrow is Oliver's half sister?
That got ruined for me a long time ago, because apparently, I guess, a whole bunch of people figured it out based off of some sort of, like, I don't know, picture leak from one of the writers from the show. And I was really, really mad, because if you all know me well, I hate spoilers and they piss me off. Yep. And so when I saw that, I was not at all shocked.
What about you, Will?
A few episodes back, we started Theory Spiraling. We didn't mention her per se, but we did to figure out. I think I tossed out Talia al Ghul as a possibility, but because just by body shape and size and stuff, I figured out it was a woman. But beyond that, I was genuinely surprised when it turned out, because I did not see any of the spoilers, and it was a pleasant surprise. But it made but obviously the way it ended and the way the show started with her doing the her drills just like her half brother, I was like, okay, I like this, and it's going to definitely lead to some things in the next part of the season. And it's also just very Robert Queen of not ever giving up, ever. And he's always got it. He always has card that he has in
In
place.
more ways than one, the man did not give up.
Yeah, I mean, really. Yeah. So
illegitimate children everywhere.
Seems to be that way.
I mean, we're throwing out illegitimate children, pacification. Jesus, guys.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think I saw where, like, maybe Screen Rant and some other places where I think if they hold true to the comic, this half sister is what was it? Queen, I think is her name.
Emiko.
Emiko Queen, and she's the Red Arrow. So if they hold true to that, then this will be fun.
But she's green.
Well, of course she is. For now.
Is Oliver gonna be that much of like a spoiled brat and be like, you can't be the Green Arrow too? I'm the Green Arrow. You have to be a different color. Maybe you could be red. Speedy was red.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe she doesn't want to carry the mantle of the Green Arrow. Maybe she wants to do it on her own. Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah. I mean,
hey, we've got Speedy,
and we've already got a missing.
Yeah,
we got Colton in a red outfit. So what? Yeah. She'll be like, hey, I'll just be red because that's been an original idea,
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Let's I don't know. Let's try something like black, because they do have to be in the dark all the time.
They do. But
whatever. maybe blue. No, I think that the introduction of Emiko Queen is kind of cool, considering that she is a legitimate part of the Green Arrow comics. I just am curious as to who the mom's going to be, even though everyone's already spoiled that for me too. But yeah, so because it can't be Shadow.
Yeah, but it's Talia, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, it is Talia?
Yeah. That, from my understanding, because in the comics it's Shadow,
right?
And they can't really do that for the show. So it only makes sense that they would use Talia as the mom of Emiko Queen, just because of the way that she's trained just like Oliver. She shoots just like Oliver. And who is the one who trained Oliver? So
that's why they brought her back in the prison storyline.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all
makes sense.
Yep.
Makes
total sense. Yep.
But also, Robert Queen got around. Like,
oh my God, that man! I swear to God.
Yeah. Son. Yeah. The son is like the father.
and wait, William is just now coming back to Star City. How many affairs has he gone off and had? Like, Jesus.
Right. I just, I'm as much as I enjoy the show and everything, one of the things I will say that in the last 2 seasons, even the last 3, because, I mean, let's face it, that halfway through season 4, you were just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Mark and Wendy were just doing a really crappy job. Like, everything about what was happening in those seasons, it just didn't click. And so here we are in season 7, and they're doing a lot of cleaning, trying to clean up the mess that was left behind. And I'm giving mad props to these writers, because they're really addressing a lot of issues that I think if it was still under Mark and Wendy's guidance, we wouldn't be having. And so that's why I'm not going to be upset with the direction that the show is going, as like most people are like freaking out, and I have to laugh at them because I'm like, wow, it's going to be okay. But I really think that they kind of really had to map out, and I think that's why Beth has been so hush hush about what's going on. Like, they used to leak all kinds of stuff, and now she's like, she's got that on lock.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, good on her. Because,
I know as a viewer. Yeah. As a viewer, it's great. I mean, that's the one thing that gets so maddening with some of the other shows, The Flash and others, where you just see all the set photos and, I'm guilty as charged as far as sometimes sharing them, but other times I'm just like, I wish I hadn't seen that. just be a little surprised.
And
Yeah,
it's funny. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that I totally agree with you. I mean, despite like my starting off on a negative note about this episode as a whole, this is probably one of the better seasons of Arrow, if not the best. They can always still screw it up. I mean, come on, 23 episodes,
Yeah.
plenty of time to screw it up. But we last week when Will and I were talking about it, we both agreed like they're making the right decisions this year. It's a new show, but it also feels a lot like season 1, season 2. Like it has that same spirit. And I, despite Olicity being on the rocks, like I agree with you. Like, it makes sense why they both are behaving in this way. I didn't like seeing the behavior, but I understand the logic and the motivation to do it, and it needs to be said. I just wish it was, I guess, handled and maybe acted in a little bit of a different way. That's my preference. And I like the flash forwards. I'm surprised to hear that people are not digging them, because I like the twist. I like how it's not going back to Island and seeing how Oliver became who he is 5 years later. It's about William rediscovering where he comes from and the legacy his dad left behind.
Yeah, you and I are part of the minority in that, because there's a lot of people who are not digging it. And you know what it comes down to is they feel that Dinah, Black Canary, is getting too much screen time, and people are just, for some reason, they're so new Team Arrow team is honestly they're so hated within the fandom, and I want to say the Olicity fandom specifically, because they don't want them as part of OTA. So having those flash forwards where Dinah's kind of important part in telling the story of the flash forward, they're not having it. And so it's kind of like, all right. But for me, the flash forwards I think are awesome. Like, I totally dig that whole like dystopian future kind of thing. I love that kind of stuff, and I think it's so cool. So I'm really into it. But other people don't like it. And what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Well, you're gonna watch. That's what you're gonna do, because I want to know what happened to Dinah's throat.
Yes.
Did you see that?
I just noticed that. Yeah.
Yes. I told my mom, I was like, what happened to her neck?
Yeah, I know. I have to go and rewatch episodes, because I'm like, am I just noticing this now?
Yeah, I mean, it makes. Well, I saw it this episode, and I was like, oh, because I know they made reference to I guess some non-meta act. I guess around episodes 3 or 4 when they did the flash forwards, where metas were like prohibited or something like that, if I recall. Right. And I saw the scar this week, and I was like, oh, so
they got rid of her scream.
Yep. So yeah, and I was like, why did it take me so long to see that?
Yeah, no, I know. I'm so digging the flash forwards. Like, I'm so intrigued, and I love the introduction of Maya. Even if she's gonna end up being the Olicity baby everyone's been wishing for.
Hey, that's a good wish to have.
I'm so like, kids nowadays, like, just, it's not necessary to like get married and start popping out babies, but whatever.
Yeah. Oliver's got to catch. Well, no, Oliver has William, so he doesn't have to catch up to Barry.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or depending on what timeline you're in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I mean, after this crossover, everyone could just suddenly disappear. You never know.
Which brings me to another question that I have while watching both Arrow and The Flash, especially watching The Flash. And it goes back to our first conversation this season about it, Will, where we both thought it was weird how The Flash did not pick up 6 months later from the Enlightenment.
That's right.
I still have yet to answer as to why they made that decision.
Well, but Well, because Nora was introduced in the living room, so it was, I think that first episode there was no need for the time jump, but there had to be some kind of time jump somewhere in order to get everything synced up to the Elseworlds.
Nope. They said they talked about in the other night's episode, the 100th episode, that it's only been 3 weeks since Gracie's been in the hospital.
That's right. They did say that.
Yep. I've been keeping my ears sharp on this because it's driving me crazy because I know that there's a reason why they made that decision. And that's why I'm constantly like, okay, and then they're going to tell me the reason, and it's going to wipe the Olicity slate clean, and all this will be merry over there. Just give me what I want.
Either that or there's going to be a time jump this week to get to Elseworlds.
You know, I'm curious as to how everything's going to fall into Elseworld because for me, just from seeing previews of The Flash and watching Arrow, I'm like, how is it all going to come together? You know, whereas in all the other previous shows leading up to it, they've really started, like, they hint at things. They even mention each other in the episodes. Yeah. Whereas this one, I really haven't heard any mention. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch The Flash, but at least in Arrow, I haven't even heard them once mention Barry.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true. I mean, even though Barry also was in prison for like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things move much faster in Flashland. I'll tell you that much.
Apparently, Central City has its own, time zone going on over there.
Oh yeah. Well, there was a time hack this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Okay, I got to get into this with Will because it started off so strong for me. I was like, oh, major exposition scene, a lot of science, a lot of excitement, a lot of like pieces like here. Let me tell the audience what's going to happen, what we're doing, why, and why makes logical sense. I love all of that. I like how Barry originally didn't want Nora to go, and then and then Iris convinced him. I like that. I like them going back, and instead of going forward, because so much of this show is about time travel and trying to erase past mistakes. Instead of this time, it's a revisiting all of those bad moments, and there's something unique about that I liked. And then they came back to the present day.
Yeah.
And things got silly.
It
just did. Downright silly. And I blame it all on the casting of Chris Klein. I mean, I recall back when he was first announced, you had your hesitation about him.
Yeah.
And you were completely right. Like, he's really bad. Really bad.
Oh, gosh.
And it bothers me because we've spent so much time with this villain. I don't care if he's not the overall big bad guy of this season. I don't care about that. The writers are still dedicating a lot of time to his story, to his progression. And to me, whether like it's just why haven't they gotten rid of him?
They had to get to this point for the ultimate reveal at the end of the episode. I don't know. I won't belabor the point that I made last week about him being a glorified villain of the week, or week in however way you want to use that word. But I think at this point, let's just dispose of him and let's just really focus on what's really going on between Nora and Eobard. Because that ending was like why I will have to say that was why I fell for this show to begin with.
Yes.
And also just seeing, even the scene where I guess it was season was it 2 or 3 where
Two.
yeah, 2 to help him defeat Zoom. He had to learn from Thawn. That scene was just beautiful, and how just unpack it in so many ways. One, you had again mind twisting of the timeline, because you had Thawn. Clearly, this version of Thawn is on a different path than what they are on right now, because he was confused about Nora versus Dawn and the Tornado Twins.
Mm-hmm.
So you had that piece. 2, Veronica chime in. This version of Thawn, some version of Thawn was killed off in Legends of Tomorrow. So we, and
yeah.
So so you had that piece going. 3, you had I just reminded how well they play off each other, because I have some correspondence and folks on Twitter last week after the episode are like, why did Matt Lester come back as far as playing Thawn? And I was like, because Tom Cavanaugh and Grant just play off each other so well, and that version of Wells is still,
it's iconic.
Yeah, it is. It is. No disrespect to Matt Lester, because he's done a great job with the character too. But yeah, and so you had all those pieces going, and to me that was like the highlight of the episode. That and the end. The Savitar one was kind of like, okay. I was disappointed. I felt like, the Savitar and the Zoom moments were like, oh, this is a clip show. They're just trying to save on the budget for the 100th episode, because they're, they hyped it up so much. But I will, even though I have my quibbles with it, I will have to say that the scenes with Thawn are what made me enjoy it. Even, as I said earlier, prisoner of the moment. Over time, some of that has faded a bit, but just talking about it now, it reminds me of like, why I did like the 100th episode. And my gut reaction was like, damn, that was good.
Yeah, I think because I recall being at one point, I preferred Matt Lester over Tom Cavanaugh as Thawn, Eobard Thawn. But I think why they chose this version for him to go back in time and re-encounter is because this season Barry's a father for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also not the one who trained Nora.
Right.
To be a speedster. Because Iris made the decision that she wasn't going to, considering what happened to her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're seeing in the present day Nora getting training from her dad, and why they went back in time to revisit the season 1 technically. Eobard Thawn is because Eobard Thawn is the one who taught Barry how to be a speedster.
Right.
And that's why that betrayal was so Shakespearean, because yes, that is your biggest arch enemy. That is the man who murdered your father, but that is also the man who for months has been a second father for you, a father figure who has taught you how to be the hero that is going to turn into the villain for him. Like there's so many, much to that relationship that.
Totally.
And that's why I like the reveal at the end.
Yeah.
I think that there's some cheesiness that I can't help but not see to that reveal. But I also, if maybe they just had done different makeup, I don't know. Don't know why his hair was blonde and it bothers me.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a tip nod to, because Thawn is blonde.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
So it was a nod to, at least to that. And, and to your point, the father figure, not only was he a father figure to Barry, but also to Cisco. Because think about it, in the scene in this episode where they go back to the night of the particle accelerator explosion, and he does he extends the hand of friendship. But we all, the moment he stuck his hand up like that, I was just like, I instantly went back to season 1 where he impaled Cisco. And
I went back, but not in a good way.
And yeah, I did. And definitely not in a good way.
No, no,
But it
no.
was. Oh.
No, it worked for you. It did not work for me because I
Oh.
felt like it was forced. I feel like
Oh.
they've reused that way too much.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I know Collider made that point too, as far as going to that well one too many times. Wells one too many times, but yeah, but there
There's
was
a
also
well in every season.
there is. We don't need Sherlock unless Sherlock is just Eobard just hanging out. I doubt, but or in liege with them, but I doubt that.
Well, Sherlock has been on suspicious of Nora for a while now. He knows, and it's just a matter of time before he get that connection.
Mm-hmm.
That I mean, clearly it was Eobard who told Nora when to go back.
Yep.
And it's again, it's very fascinating for me to know now that like those moments when she's in the future day and seeing Reverse Flash's suit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that there's a connection there. You can see that there's it's almost like she's seeing her father's suit for the first time. Yeah. Because Eobard clearly is the one who, right up until she went back in time, taught her as much as he could about being a speedster to begin with.
Yep. And also, yeah, and the betrayal also is going to be so devastating because, Barry making the point of like not sharing everything about his story to her, and it made a particular point of like saying not everything that happens is in the Flash Museum.
Yeah. Okay, Iris, we got to talk.
Yeah.
Because what do you mean you don't tell her? Like, I understand half of the thing. I understand most of it, all of her decision making in the future. Mm-hmm. But you're really going to tell me that she never was told who killed Barry's mom and why Barry was forced to live with Iris and Joe even to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good plot hole that you've exposed there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Iris was, because she knows, she's seen the parts of Nora that are a lot like Barry, and maybe she was afraid to tell her those things because she was afraid that she would then go back and try to fix it, just like Barry tried to at Flashpoint, and Iris, knowing the results of the Flashpoint, maybe that's why she didn't share it with her.
But she didn't have power, so she couldn't have gone. It's not that. Well, yeah, she had a power dampener put into her, so she couldn't have gone back even if she wanted to. But I just to me, I don't know why Nora hasn't brought up the fact that, hey, Mom, not only did you take away my powers, but you never told me a damn thing about my father. Well, how unfair is that?
Yeah, well, and maybe it's maybe if I be they'll explore that part of the storyline.
Maybe, or maybe they'll focus on Cicada. No.
Speaking of Cicada, I have to give a shout out to one of our listeners, at Lou Jeffrey. He made a point. He was speaking of like silliness there at the end fight. Why didn't Killer Frost just free Cicada?
Well, she comes and she goes.
Yeah.
She's not a meta. She's a free spirit.
Yeah, but she could have frozen him and then everything would have been fine. He wouldn't have gotten away. They could have taken him to the pipe. They could have taken him to the pipeline, and then everything would be good.
You know how that dagger like sucks up all of the meta power, the dark matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So along with the dark matter, you have logic.
Yeah, there's that
sucked right up.
Yeah, there's that too.
There's that too. Well, Veronica, did we convince you to check out the Flash season 5? Did we totally sell you on like what a great season it is?
I mean, sure.
Yeah, and
I think what I'll do is wait and binge watch it all together so I can know what's going on.
One other thing I just wanted, as far as the time, thinking to your point, Sarah, about Iris not telling her, is that there was, whenever they translated the book, they had it was like, I think one of the translations was "time is malleable," and so again, and I meant to bring this up earlier, but I think that also plays into why some of these events are, Nora and Thawn is manipulating Nora, maybe, into rejiggering a lot of these events in the past so that, one, he can continue his lineage, because obviously he's here now in 2049, but also, it also possibly a way to just, to just mess with Barry. Another thing is too, I mean, she could just be evil. I mean, we saw those evil looks that she gave back in season 4, and even when, even in season 5 with Sherlock, these suspicious looks, which now we know why. So,
well, she's the 5th member of a legion.
Yeah, it could be Legion of Doom. It could be the Legion. It could be the Legion of Doom, or it could be the Legion of Superheroes, which is excess.
That's pushing it.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think most likely there'll be a twist, and where her fate was going to be the Legion of Doom, and then they changed it, and now it's superheroes. But I actually would prefer if she went the Doom route, because again, why Eobard Thawn is such a good villain for Barry Allen is because of that manipulation. And that idea that, well, I'm going to prevent the man who I despise from becoming this hero by taking away his mom. That didn't work. Okay, well, now let me take away his daughter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, or he could do that, or she may just Marty McFly herself. So.
Well. That would be the logical thing. No,
yeah.
I think we're running low.
And then we do end up with the Tornado Twins.
Yeah. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else to say before we wrap it up tonight?
I'm good.
I think the only thing I want to say is, because you're worried, they're not breaking up Olicity.
You know how many viewers they would lose if they ever did such a thing? No.
Yeah, you know what? It's such a tiresome couple thing to do in every single show. Every show. Like, God, I mean, can we just try something different once in a while? They, argue and then make up sex or whatever. And then they're fine the next day. Like, come on, because this constant cliffhanger of oh my God, they're gonna break up. It's getting old, and I'm tired of seeing it in all these shows. I'm just I don't know why that has to be the only way to write couples dealing with issues. It's just stupid. But I think the reason I bring that up is because so many people are the fandom is just in an uproar right now about it, and I kind of feel like some people are taking it to a whole different level. And I feel really I feel really bad for them. I'm oh my God, who hurt you that this is affecting you so much? And I'm not trying to, and I don't want to be, I'm not being mean about it. It's just that I'm I'm sorry. I just don't see this kind of breaking them up again happening in the show, ever. So I think you can be feeling very assured that, it's going to be okay. They're just going to have their ups and downs for a while.
Yeah. Will, it's going to be okay.
Yes, Sarah, it's going to be okay. Yeah, you'll be able to continue to make your fan vids. Don't worry.
Hey, they're giving me a lot of good content to use for those things. And I got a bunch of new toys. I just have to write one more paper and then I can finally play with all of them. I agree with you. And actually, Veronica, you raised a point that I've always been fascinated about too, in terms of storytelling. Unfortunately, we don't have time tonight to talk about it, but hopefully we could bring you back and explore that topic, because it is true that like there's this thing that occurs in any show where you have this plot point between two characters who end up falling in love, and it seems like suddenly the writers don't know what to do because now they're together and we don't know how to have couples together on screen.
No.
So we're going to break them up and then we're going to put them back together, and that's just going to continue to happen and happen and happen. And it is really amusing, or not amusing, but it's really fascinating to understand why that occurs, and why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
yeah,
future hiatus show.
There we go.
There you go. Yes.
All right, Veronica, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Nerdy Chicana, NERDYXICNANA.
You can also read her fan fiction.
Yes, read it.
Yes. I've only got 2, so it's not like a whole lot, but yeah, sure.
Read it, bookmark it, give her kudos. She deserves it.
Thank you.
Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at SNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.